All right, let's dive into something really fascinating today. It's an idea that could completely change how we build, well, just about everything, from AI to teams of robots. It's a blueprint for true resilience, and it's called the Phoenix Engine.
So let me just start with a question to get you thinking. What if failure wasn't something to be avoided at all costs? Most systems we build are brittle. You push them too hard and they just break. But what if instead they were built to actually get stronger from failure? What if they could literally be reborn from their own ashes?
Well, that's where this concept called recursive resurrection comes in. Just think of it like a universal cycle that you see everywhere, a pattern of collapse and rebirth. But the key here is that it doesn't just recover from failure, it actively uses it to get better. This is the core logic behind what the source material calls a Phoenix engine.
So let's really unpack this thing. We're talking about a powerful new mental model, a framework that, believe it or not, seems to apply to everything from the chemical origins of life all the way to the future of artificial intelligence.
So what is recursive resurrection, or RR for short? At its core, it's a 6-phase cycle. It's a process that explains how things change, how they find a new identity and a new way of organizing after a breakdown. And the really big idea here is that it works across all scales. We're not just talking about software, we're talking about what might be a fundamental pattern of nature itself.
So, what does this cycle actually look like? How does this Phoenix Engine really work? Let's take a look at the blueprint and see how this whole process builds phase by phase.
Okay, so here they are, these 6 phases. It all starts in a stable state. Everything's working just fine. But then the system gets pushed to its limits, and it enters saturation. This pressure leads inevitably to collapse, where the old way of doing things just falls apart. And from those ashes, the magic happens. First, glitch integration, where the errors get processed. Then, re-emergence, where brand new patterns start to appear, leading finally to a new, stronger state of restabilization. That's the whole roadmap.
So it all kicks off when a perfectly stable system starts to get overwhelmed. We call this the saturation phase. You can imagine its bandwidth is just filling up. Could be with feedback, too much data, or recursive loops in a program. Whatever it is, the system is being pushed right to the edge of its limits.
And once that threshold is crossed, we hit collapse. Now, collapse sounds pretty bad, right? But in the RR model, it's absolutely essential. The system's old structure, its internal logic, it just can't handle the load anymore, so it begins to break down. But this isn't the end. It's actually a necessary transition.
And this is the coolest part, the absolute game changer, glitch integration. This is where failure literally becomes fuel for growth. The system takes all those errors, all the weird anomalies and contradictions that caused the collapse in the first place, and it actively integrates them. It's learning from what went wrong, turning bugs into features. This is where the upgrade actually happens.
Okay, this all sounds amazing in theory, but how do you actually see it happening? How do we know if a system is stable, or if it's about to collapse, or if it's successfully coming back stronger? We're going to need a way to measure its health.
And that's where the RR index comes in. Think of it literally like a set of vital signs for any system you can imagine. It's a way to put numbers to this process so we can track exactly where a system is in this whole resurrection cycle. So the index has 4 key metrics. First, you've got capability realization, or CR. This one basically watches for when the system is getting close to its breaking point. Next is structural sufficiency, or SS, which measures its safety margin. How much can it bend before it snaps? Then there's complexity density, CD, which is like an early warning system for weird, unexpected behavior. And finally, behavioral predictiveness, BP, which helps us predict if the system is actually going to recover successfully after it collapses. Put them all together, and you've got a dashboard for resilience.
Okay, theory is one thing, but let's get to the really exciting stuff. Where is this being used in the real world? Because the applications for this framework are incredibly broad, and honestly, they're pretty mind-blowing.
First up, and this is wild, the origins of life. Scientists are actually using robotic chemists that run these recursive cycles over and over. When an experiment kind of hits a dead end or collapses, the system uses that failure as a glitch integration moment. And get this, that's how it's discovering entirely new, unexpected molecules. The RR index helps them track this evolution of complexity right there in a test tube.
And of course, it's being used in AI. RR gives us a model for how a group of AI agents can deal with cognitive overload. When they get flooded with too much conflicting info, they can go through a controlled collapse and reorganize. The RR index acts as a kind of resilience fingerprint for the AI's memory.
There are even special metacognitive agents whose whole job is to manage the collapse and make sure the lessons get learned.
And it's not just for code and algorithms. This works for physical robots too. Teams of robots are using this framework to coordinate their tasks. You can imagine a high-level brain robot overseeing the whole mission, while other robots do their jobs. When one of them messes up, the whole team doesn't just shut down. Instead, it goes through a quick, localized collapse and re-emergence, letting the team adapt on the fly and find a new way to get the job done.
And finally, here's one that you've probably felt yourself: learning. The RR cycle is a perfect metaphor for it, right? You start with something you know, that's stable knowledge. Then you hit a really hard problem and you struggle. That's saturation. Sometimes your brain just feels broken. But then you integrate your mistakes, the glitches, and suddenly you have that aha moment of re-emergence. A deeper, more resilient understanding is born.
So when you pull it all together, what are we really talking about here? This isn't just about fixing things when they break. This is a totally different way of thinking about design, about intelligence itself.
I just love this analogy from the source material. It describes these systems as being like a layered prism. A complex question goes in, and these cycles of collapse and rebirth filter it, refine it, and recombine it. And what comes out the other side isn't just one static right answer. It's a rich, nuanced spectrum of possibilities that gets better and better with every cycle.
So here's the bottom line. Recursive resurrection is way more than just a cool theory. It is a practical engineering blueprint for creating intelligence, whether that's artificial or even organizational, that doesn't fear collapse. It embraces it as the core engine for learning, for adaptation, and for evolution.
And that really leaves us with one final, huge question. If we can truly build systems that are designed to rise from their own ashes stronger than before, what's possible then? What are the limits when failure is no longer the thing we avoid, but the very path to innovation?